let's kick off straight away because we only have half an hour. And hello also to everyone watching on live stream and in perpetuity on YouTube. We will never forget you, and we're thinking of you always. So, as Daniel said, my name is Joe Haslam. I'm a professor at IE Business School. I'm the executive director of the Owner Scale-Up program, a program specifically designed for owners who want to scale. In other words, not people who want to start, but people who want to scale. I'm a 6-time co-founder, and probably the biggest company. We raised over 70 million, which used to be a lot of money. These days, as we discovered yesterday, 30 million is a seed, as we had a guy from Israel tell us. So it's a really delight to be here. And we're going to we have someone from France, we have somebody from the Basque Country, and finally we have somebody from Portugal. So, and I'm, of course, Ireland. We always regard ourselves as Southern Europeans anyway. Somehow our island got dragged up to the north, but all the time we're trying to go back to the people who we connect with. So let's start quickly, guys, by playing the funds under management game. So if you could play introduce yourself and tell us all how much funds you have under management and see who's going to win that game. Victor, adelante.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you, everyone. So I'm Victor. I'm part of Partech Partners. We're a multi-stage investment firm. I'm personally based in Paris, where we have our HQ. We have another office in San Francisco, in Berlin, and in Africa. We have 2 offices in Africa, actually. And we invest across several strategies, from seed to venture to growth. Even if I'm to play Joe's game, currently around 2 billion under management.
See, I knew you were going to win,
It's easy. So with a growth fund, it's easier. And so, yeah, personally, I focus on the late stage investment within Partech.
Okay, fantastic. Hugo.
So Hugo Mar Domingo, co-founder of All Iron Ventures, early stage venture firm based in Bilbao, but investing across Europe globally. So not only invest in Bilbao. With 110 million under management in our third year as an institutional firm. We started angel investing, but 1 year later, we decided to create an institutional setup. And well, combination of business angel and venture activity, that's what makes us different. And 2 years and a half for 40 companies, 60% of them outside of Spain, and 40% in Spain.
Yeah. And a lot of it is your own money as well, right?
Excuse me?
A lot of the money, a lot of your fund comes directly from the partners themselves, yeah?
Exactly. We have a lot of skin in the game. So when we take the decision, we don't think in the management fees, but rather, and is this a very good company? And that's the way we act.
Victor can talk about his 2 billion, but
lower proportion from my own.
Which is better, to have 2 billion of other people's money or 110 of a lot of it is your own? Okay, finally, Stefan, could you introduce yourself, please, and then tell us how much you have under management, because it seems to be a thing people like to say.
Yes, so Stefan Moraes, managing partner of Indico Capital Partners. We're a fund, an early stage fund based out of Lisbon. We manage 2 funds, altogether 66 million. We invest between 100,000 to 5 million per company. We've invested in 25 companies in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, 30 million. And those companies have raised until now just above 800 million in the last 2.5 years.
Okay, so thank you, Stefan. Muito obrigado.
Nada, prazer.
Brilliant. Anyway, so Victor, the French spend all their time on holidays or skiing. They're lazy. Their best days are behind them, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what we hear in Silicon Valley. Even though then you turn around and all the founders seem to be from France in the first place. So is France a great place to invest?
It is. We do like skiing, and holidays in Poland. This I cannot deny. France is a great market to invest. By no means it's the only one that is attractive in Europe. So at the growth stage we invest across Europe, although most of us are based in Paris. And I would argue actually that it's true that currently, if we look at the tech market in France in particular, it's been, we have announcement after announcement, very large fundraising, unicorns, and so on, which is great. Let's not forget that, 4 or 5 years ago, France was, you could maybe have 1 or 2 around above 100 million in a given year. The growth market was, 20, 30 companies a year, which would be relevant. And nowadays it's more 30 companies a month. And so things change very fast. And when, to pick up this is to talk a bit about Southern Europe beyond France, I think this is something to keep in mind as well. Looking at things not in an absolute perspective of the amount raised and comparing country by country, but really looking at the cohort view and looking at what's coming. And yes, maybe nowadays in Southern Europe, in Spain, Portugal, etc., although Portugal do have I think
so this is always the question I ask. If you're like, like the guy in Datadog or something like that, like, would you go to the US to set up your company, or would you do it in France? What's the call on that? A talented guy coming out of whatever École Polytechnique. Yeah, I love the French accent. Would you stay in France, or would you go to the US?
Well,
tell the truth.
If I'm honest, I would probably go in the US. Maybe not at the beginning.
Thank you, Victor. It's been very interesting knowing you.
No, exactly. Not at the beginning, but just if I can say just one nuance. On B2B, enterprise software, infrastructure software, it's still the US is the biggest market. It's where you have to play there. If we talk about B2C, fintech, etc., then it's a different story. We can take it.
Sure, and all this stuff that Macron is doing, none of which I only ever read the headline and never read the article. Is it going to be useful, or is it just like he wants to be re-elected?
Both. No, it helps. It helps. There is a lot of public money in the ecosystem, and that has helped France for sure. It's important that it does not distort the market too much.
And affect valuations.
Yes. But I'm not going to, complain about this. I mean, the whole ecosystem is benefiting from it, and net, I think it's still a positive.
Let's move on to Hugo. So everyone in the Basque Country just spends all their time eating the largest food, and so nobody really does any work. So that's basically the argument. Having big dinners among yourselves and all your friends. Is that true, or is it not?
Well, at least not in my case. I mean, looking at the title of the conference and basically going back to my personal story, and going back to my roots in venture capital, when I started this in 2014, I came from Brazil, where I was doing private equity in Latin America. I came back to Spain. I wanted to land in VC. I started to calling all the American VCs, the Sequoia, the Axel, and the likes, and I didn't find a job there, so I said, okay, let's make it here. But then when looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Spain, it was basically almost nothing.
Yeah, two brothers, or one set of brothers, actually.
Two brothers. And it's like, okay, what is... Yeah, exactly, two brothers. And some cousins as well. So then you try to reflect on what
what happened to those guys? I haven't seen them in ages. They're around.
Maybe you're not in the right place, but they're around. So then I started to think and reflect on, okay, what are the reasons for this? So they were not major reasons. It's just because this kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem are not aligned, or just circles that feedback each other. So in 2014 it started, and 2017 we launched Olairon, and we started to see this shift that applies not only to the entrepreneurs, but also to the customer sentiment, so the big corporates buying more things from a startup, but also to the investors. So we started to see this shift from within. And what we are seeing, and the path we are looking at, is that this is something that does not stop. So it's not just one piece that moves. It's not one piece that moves another, that moves another, that moves another. Because if you look at Southern Europe itself, the basics of the market are really good for so many different reasons. And then we have another thing which also applies, which is super interesting. The generations of entrepreneurs that in France 10 years ago, in Spain 7 years ago, in Portugal, maybe something similar, they were extremely resilient. They were used to operate in an environment that was constrained by everywhere, because of money, because of the market, because of the customers, because of you are going to look for talent and there was not enough talent. So what's currently happening is that what entrepreneurs thought were their ceilings before is not their ceiling anymore. They're thinking much bigger.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a fundamental shift in Southern Europe.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the last sentence you said, it sums up everything, in my opinion, what I'm seeing, which is that, people have more confidence. And that comes from seeing other people be successful. Then you're suddenly like, why should I be afraid? That's very welcome, because, we've always seen that, you need all the elements. You need the talent and you need the money. But if the entrepreneurs themselves, are not brave, and then it's really no good to everyone. So, Stefan, here's my Portuguese cliche. All Portuguese guys are playboys, sitting around Estoril, yachting and hanging out with supermodels, so no one does any work.
It's not a bad cliche.
No one works here. Man.
I think I won this competition.
You should know. You see, this is the thing about being an Anglo-Saxon in theory, which is to say, like, you hear both sides of the argument, you know. So they're like, but then of course you have like 7 unicorns or something like that, you know. So I mean, somebody must be doing something. So you know, which are you playboys or are you hardworking unicorns?
Yes, the 7 are not all public yet, but effectively that's 7. Publicly now there's 5. One of them being Farfetch, where we were the only investors back in the day, which is now worth, I think, 20 billion or so. The other one is Talkdesk, founded by my partner at the fund, Christina. She's 33. Her company is worth 10 billion, so that's another one. And there's a few more that we were involved, and a few that will be announced soon. So yes, even 5, I think it's more than any other big country in Europe. Maybe all together are not, which is a bit surprising, right? For such a small country like Portugal, where the ecosystem is essentially 10 years old. And I've been fortunate to have been there for the last decade and have backed almost all those success stories. I think that one of the things that is really surprisingly good for the ecosystem is that there is no local market. So Portugal is so small that this forces people to go global from day one. We never have this thing of, oh, now I'm going global. No, you are born global. The Portuguese companies are quite often American companies or British, and they will have the tech team because of the very good tech talent at a reasonable cost, although rising rapidly on the tech side, but very hardworking, very creative tech people. And then, of course, almost no talent in sales and marketing, and the market, as you were saying, is in the US, and so the Portuguese entrepreneurs, they set up shop in the US as soon as possible.
Or London, no? I mean,
or
in
London.
the case of
Or London.
Farfetch.
Farfetch was Guimarães and London. It's not even Lisbon. That's another thing. It's a little bit like Spain.
Yeah.
It's not about Lisbon. The majority of our portfolio is across
Porto,
5 different cities: Porto, Leiria, Coimbra. I mean, lots of very different places. And I think that what Hugo was saying is really important, because there was a bit of a lack of capital. Now there's more funds like ours and 2 or 3 more. Still not 20 or 30 as there are in other countries, and certainly nothing like in France. But I think that keeps people grounded a little bit as well. It keeps people efficient. And we've seen...
This is an investor talking,
investor
not
talking,
an entrepreneur
right?
talking.
Exactly.
I'd love to be in a board meeting with you with disappointing results.
Yes.
I think you'd be, you know, that smile would disappear very quickly. But
Exactly.
anyway,
So it's an entrepreneur's market. There's no doubt about that. Even in Portugal, without excess capital, I'd say. But the good thing is that it's really an up-and-coming center of a hub, and we position ourselves, and we've positioned ourselves for the last decade, as kind of the suppliers of deal flow to the big funds, like Partech, and we've invested a lot with Oliron and funds all over the world, from SoftBank to the sovereign wealth funds of Singapore and Mubadala and so on, and we've co-invested globally, and that's how you turn 30 million investment into over 800 of follow-on rounds in mostly Portuguese companies.
My good friend Paddy Cosgrave would never forgive me if I didn't ask you, has the Web Summit made any difference? So what do you think? Is there any effect?
He's a good friend. I think there is. I mean, probably not in sense of fundraising itself, but I think that the awareness of Portugal as a tech hub, the Web Summit has helped. It's a huge event, sometimes probably a little bit too big compared to the South Summit, which is really a good-sized event. But it did bring a lot of new people into the market, and also I think that we've seen an influx of foreign capital, but also foreign talent. So we have in our portfolio, although we do focus mostly on Portugal and a little bit of Spain, we have French founders, Spanish founders, and Americans and so on that have moved to Lisbon because they want to live there, or Porto, and they're now in our portfolio they are Portuguese companies to that extent. So capital and talent have flowed to Lisbon, and it's certainly very different from like 10 years ago. You now go out to the street, now particularly now after the pandemic again, we're there, you go to a restaurant and you're surrounded with people from all over the world, and you think, okay, it looks like I'm in London on a mini scale, but it's super international.
But that's just because of the time out place, it's
that's
like,
right.
Okay, little, inside joke there, which is always great for the people online. So Victor, I want to talk to you a bit about deep tech, which is probably I did an interview yesterday with ABC, and they were asking me sort of what's changing in Spain, and I was saying that K-Fund have a new deep tech fund. Nadia Clavino is talking about the government specifically having a deep tech fund. My you know, there used to be when I worked in the City of London, like every smart guy used to be a French engineer, so I have this sort of associate. Of course, they were doing horrible things with money rather than useful things for society, but you know, I guess that's another debate. So, I mean, is there a big emphasis on in France on deep tech and engineering, or you know, is it whatever makes money?
It's yeah, I mean, whatever makes money is always.
You'll have confessed to a murder by the end of the time.
Yeah,
I'm finished
exactly.
with you.
I'm going to fire. No, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, it has to, you know, and it's. And
But if you have 2 billion, I mean, if you're not investing in like rockets and
no,
you
but
know,
so exactly, and I think. And it depends how you define deep tech. Obviously, you have many
Here
different
we go.
people
Here
who
we go. The
define
French
differently.
French. Never talk to a guy with glasses and a black
No,
polo
but
neck.
in practice it evolved. Frankly, are we in a place or yet where in France, you know, you can raise very large round for pure deep tech with very limited revenue? I'm not sure we have the ecosystem maturity yet. The government is doing a lot on that. We have some very good, you know, early stage funds. At the, you know, in terms of level of risk and ability to diversify your portfolio, deep tech is, you know, yet another magnitude. And I'm not sure the ecosystem has yet matured completely, although we have some interesting success. But it's, I think it's an evolution, and you were referring to, you know, the Farfetch and the Talkdesk helping the Portuguese ecosystem. I think what's important is you have companies emerging in some industries, and cluster of founders, you know, moving from those companies and those industries to build in similar industries. An example of that for France would be, you know, we had 7-8 years ago, a lot of the companies were consumer companies because, you know, it's easier for someone who is not a founder to start something in consumer, or in the ad tech and martech space because we had some good successes like Criteo and a few others.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was the strength of the French ecosystem. But then those martech, ad tech, and consumer companies start becoming bigger. And then people working at those new startups in those space realized that there were some tools needed to build the startups on the infrastructure side, on the enterprise software side, and starting to build companies in those fields, which are a bit deeper, I would argue. Yeah. And then, you know, it's a process. And now we start to have in France really a strong enterprise and software and you know, enterprise software and infrastructure software ecosystem, which is evolving, and now lots of founders, and it is very exciting. And I think you have to go through that process. And again, it's a core view. So you start to see them at Series A, at seed and Series A, then they come at Series B. And I mean, you would know better than me, especially on the early stage type. But I think in Southern Europe, at seed, Series A, we have a lot of those companies already. You know, it's already there, and so it's just a matter of time. Give it 12, 24, maybe 36 months, and you will. I'm convinced you will have not only in consumer, but also in, you know, enterprise software, infrastructure software, huge success out of Southern Europe. There are already a few from Portugal, but I think that there is potential much more.
So Hugo, if Nadia Calvino called you up, I'm sure she's in your phone, so you'd recognize the number, and said, right, yeah, take 400 million, no question asked, you know, quadruple your ambition, go find the companies. Is that something you would embrace, or are you quite happy the way you are?
It's a good question, very good question.
I wasn't expecting that. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
No, but it's a good question. And if you ask to 10 different fund managers, will have 10 different questions. In our view, is we like to ensure that we do things properly. So we have a very high ambitions, but we think on not promising but delivering. I mean, you are what you do. So if we want to have very good results, we need to have some limited size on the funds and so on. So if she would offer me 400 million, maybe I question it. Maybe not 100, but it's 300, so it could work. But only just to say that I think there is a very important as a manager to remain consistent to your investment capacities. So maybe we wouldn't go as high. We would try to stick to what we do very good, so, which is to invest early stage into things that we really like with the right partners on board, and with that. I think we could kind of double or triple the size of our current fund, but definitely not doing much more.
So, Stefan, I want to ask you the respect question. I mean, I know you've studied in the US and things like that. I mean, do you think Europe gets no respect from like the Andreessen Horowitz and all these people? I mean, at some stage, do you do you feel we're peers at their table, or do you and that they should give us more respect?
I think that respect is arriving. I mean, certainly, 10 years ago, when we had these first Portuguese companies going to Silicon Valley, they would basically didn't even say they were from Portugal because people were like, what, where is this?
Yeah.
And nowadays, the investors at Silicon Valley, first, they know where is Portugal, also thanks to the Web Summit sometimes, but they respect, I think, and we're also seeing the US investors increasingly coming to Europe because they recognize that there's better deals to be made in Europe. There's maybe less competition, less capital, and they can have better returns. Not enough yet, in a sense that there is still a little bit of prejudice, and certainly we see it also from a fundraising perspective of the funds themselves.
Yeah.
I think the global LPs, which are the people, the institutions that put money into the funds, they still look America and then China, or even China and then America.
Victor is nodding, like...
Because even for Partech, right? Even for Partech, which is a huge fund, I'm sure, it's still difficult for us. It's impossible, right? I mean, but I think that it's arriving once you have, 7 unicorns from Portugal. People start saying, wait a minute, there's something happening over there that we must look at, and maybe it's even more sustainable because the valuations are a little bit more reasonable. Maybe the bubble is not as high, and so I think it's getting there. But there is still a lot of Silicon Valley-centric kind of mentality, and then the other big global player is obviously China. China has its own issues, and I think sometimes the global investors kind of don't appreciate that in Europe.
It's a very nice way of putting people who disappeared for, where is
right?
Jack anyway?
So maybe Europe is a bit of a reasonable place compared to some other geographies.
Yeah.
And I think
we offer nothing other than stability, rule of law, and a stable currency. But
it's not too bad, right?
Yeah, very, very much so. Okay, we have 7.5 minutes left, so I just want to sort of move towards the sales side of things. So, Victor, what's people in the audience, if they want to come up to you afterwards, what's the number one thing you want to hear them ask you? Do you want them to pitch you? Do you want them help with what are you here for, Victor? And don't just say I'm on and well, why do you?
No, but look, I'm an investor. My job is to invest money and back founders with ambitious projects, and so definitely I'd like people, come and see me. Well, I'm happy to have a general discussion.
Have you ever funded anyone who's walked up to you in a conference?
That's a good question. Probably not. If I'm honest. But remember, I would actually we did one of our portfolio company, Empires, which is in Finland, a bit far away from here. Enterprise content management software doing quite well. Was met first at Slush and led to an investment. And it was not a pre-range. It was so it was not myself. And remember, we do 10 to 12 investments in 4 years time frame, so it's not like I'm investing.
The advice always is a soft intro, right? Rather than walking up to someone in a conference.
Yeah, soft intro, but look, I still I do read my emails and answer to them. Of course, again, I'm focusing on growth and later stage. So if you send me an email for pre-seed or early stage deal, I'm probably not going to be the right person. Okay. But
So Ugo, if you go to your inbox, what subject line will you open immediately?
Yeah, most of the time, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are really proud to say that one of the things that make us different is that we are a very small firm with entrepreneurial DNA that take very quick decisions into the things that really likes. The consequence of that and the work is that we can decide very quickly. So we have decided an investment in 24 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, in general, we are tracking that. Well, Thomas can tell you from our team, but the average time we use to decide is very quick. Mm-hmm. And you need to start that from the very beginning, which is like cleaning your inbox every day, really think whether this fits you or not, give the right feedback to the entrepreneur, and if this is something that you really like, move very quick. That will make us different, and we will keep doing that. It doesn't matter if we scale on fund under management or in team or whatever.
Yeah. Stefan, I mean, you've talked about success and all of that, so tell me about your failures, right? What's your anti-portfolio? What have you missed?
I think we missed the Spanish market, to be quite frank with you. I mean, we've been so busy.
He's a total pro, isn't he?
Honestly, I mean, we kind of set out in the latest fund to do some stuff in Spain, but the truth is we saw 2,000 deals, the vast majority of which in Portugal and only a fraction in Spain, which doesn't make sense, right? Because Spain is obviously much bigger. So we were so busy that even Rui, our partner that lives here in Madrid, was busy with deals in Portugal. And so I think we need to catch up on that, and the reason why we're here at the South Summit for the first time, after many years of saying I'm going to go there, finally I made it. I'm very happy to be here, is to meet entrepreneurs, obviously to meet other fellow investors that have more experience in this market, but to be in a market that is obviously one of the growth engines of the European tech scene. And I think we obviously missed a lot on not being present here, but we were just too busy with our own local market that kept us super busy, right?
We need to solve that.
We'll solve that, yes.
Okay, that.
Send me the deals.
Well, I mean, it would work, right? So there's a few minutes, and I'd love to sort of like close it by making jokes about Brexit and all of that, but probably that's not a good idea. But I'm available like after the conference if you want to hear all my Brexit jokes. But one country that we haven't mentioned, and sometimes one of our fellow pigs is Italy. So there's no representative from Italy here. So, you know, at one stage you have these families who are capable of like, you know, world-leading product innovation, and another level you have, I don't even know who, oh yeah, Mario Draghi's president. I had to sort of think for a second who's president. So, you know, because there are no Italians here to defend themselves, when I say Italy, what do you think of? And don't say the Eurovision or the football.
I was about no. No, Italy. Look, it's actually a very interesting topic, Italy, and I'm not completely clear myself on the country. It has so many, you know, strong strengths, you know, from the sheer size, the quality of the talent from there, who all go to build in London for some reason. Yeah. You know, the proximity, some strengths. It's still at the growth stage. I'm blown away by how small it is as a market. Yeah. And frankly, I would almost argue Portugal and Spain are larger for us than Italy, which is a shame because, you know, and you know, there are a few, don't get me wrong, there are quite a few interesting late-stage, growth-stage business in Italy. But compared to the size of the economy and the size of the country, I think, again, this is a core topic. And I would not be surprised if you can mark my word, but if in a few years we see some very, very interesting stuff coming from Italy.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. Hugo, Italy or Greece actually is one of the countries. Are there countries you have any interest in, or?
Definitely. I mean, the thing is that as investors used to like the ecosystems that were very mature, where the entrepreneurs are very well trained, coming from the right companies, and doing things like very straightforward. The thing is that when looking at these geographies, you need to really roll out your sleeves and work a little bit more, try to find the right teams, and try to work a little bit more since the very beginning. But we haven't used to do that in Spain, they haven't used to do that in Portugal, and we are starting to do that also in other geographies. So for us, that extra effort is something that we can definitely achieve, and we think there is a lot of value that we can take from there. So recently was an article that Italy was 3 years after, well, they always say this comparison of 3-4 years. If you want to really make the effort and take the risk, for sure there's going to be value as an investor. Okay. This is better for us at the early stage. For them, later stage is a different story. They need to wait 10 years.
Yeah. Yes. Stefan, so you can talk about Italy, Greece, or Croatia. Often people are saying, like, have you been to Croatia? Are those markets interesting for you?
Well, while they're not in our core, Italy I've followed in the last decade quite closely for a number of reasons. And what we've seen is, well, the major problem in Italy is that, for example, many of the best Italian VCs are working in France and in the UK and in the US, right? And we have great partners of some of the major VC funds globally are Italians, but they're just not in Italy. But we've also seen a lot of entrepreneurs also moving out and so on. But the last couple of years, we've seen the creation of some promising early-stage funds, like same size as us, and obviously it's a very entrepreneurial country in all senses, and so it's very, very promising, great industry, great background, and we're seeing the return of entrepreneurs and of local VCs. So I have no doubt that Italy is going to produce incredible companies over the next 5 years, for sure.
Yeah, and just the final thing about Portugal, you know, there's always this thing about Brazil and the links to Brazil, but from what I'm told, like Portuguese people are looking less at Brazil than perhaps they used to, for reasons we all know, but like that's something that's really changed in recent years.
So that's an interesting question because it's a bit of a difference here towards the Spanish ecosystem. So the Spanish companies quite often go to South America, and the Spanish VCs encourage that, and the Portuguese companies often go to the US. Yeah. We do have actually a company in common, a Portuguese company that is Brazilian nowadays and doing very well. But it is true that it is a very, very different market, and there are some similarities, there are some synergies, there's sophisticated capital and obviously a huge market. But contrary to Spain, where the companies go to South America, the Portuguese companies go to the US. And that has been our preferred modus operandi, but we have very strong connections in Brazil as well, but just not the target market normally.
Okay, sadly we're out of time, so I will start by apologizing instead of thanking. It's not a good panel unless you're apologizing to the panelists afterwards. I'm not joking, by the way. Anyway, so I'm very sorry, Victor, I'm very sorry, Hugo, and I'm very sorry, Stefan.
It's okay.
And thank you to the audience, and thank you very much online. That's me out.